What's going on, guys? So we are back for more of Benjamin Percy's Red Hulk series as part of our coverage for the One World Under Doom event. And for this one, I wanted to combine our coverage of issues 4 and 5 so we could get right to the return of Red Hulk. Because as soon as he shows up, he makes it clear that he's not playing with Doom or anyone in Latveria. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so jumping back in, the first thing I want to say, just as a reminder, the events that we're seeing here, up to this point with Red Hulk issues 4 and 5, they're still catching up to the main events in One World Under Doom. Because at this point when we come back, Thaddeus Ross, who'd recently escaped Doom's dungeon in Latveria, which was pretty much like a think tank where Doom held a ton of brilliant strategic minds against their will so he could use their intelligence to form the strategies that would get him into the seat of power that he's currently in. And at this point, Ross is still on the run in Latveria. And among the handful who escaped this dungeon, the few who remain at this time are Thaddeus Ross, Deathlock, and Machine Man, who like we saw were chased down by the Doombots and left with no other choice but to jump off a cliff down into an icy river, with their choices being either certain death or potential death. And another thing to keep in mind here, because Thaddeus Ross had been locked up for so long without sunlight or any exposure to radiation, he's not able to Hulk out. But because he knows so many locations around the world like the back of his hand, he knows where to find the nearest nuclear plant in Latveria, which will give him more than what he needs to Hulk out again. So that's where they're heading now in hopes of not getting killed before they get there. Because it was also at this time when Doom dropped what he was doing at the United Nations General Assembly to make his way to Latveria in person to handle this situation. But after Doom was informed by his Doombots that General Ross was making his way to the nuclear power plant, when the Doombots told him that they're gonna guard the security and make sure it doesn't happen, Emperor Doom was like, there's no need for that, because as Sorcerer Supreme, he could just wipe it off the map. And as Doom makes his way to the nuclear plant, he tells the other Doombots here, I am needed elsewhere. I trust that you all will complete your very simple task. There's a half-naked man roaming this half-frozen countryside. If you cannot locate and apprehend him, then you are as good as scrap metal to me. Thunderbolt Ross thinks he can outmaneuver me in my own country, but I know what he wants. Nuclear energy to power the Red Hulk. Ross is merely a man without him, a fragile piece of flesh who will be weakened by the elements. And that's where at this point, with Doom having places to be, he makes the nuclear power plant disappear and he gets out of there. But as for Ross and the others who are washed up and freezing, the cold is more of a problem for Ross than it is for Deathlock or Machine Man. And I mean, Deathlock could use some heat too, but with Machine Man, he's broken into two pieces with no power at the moment. So in his case, he has other concerns. But the first thing they gotta handle before they get moving is the issue of finding some kind of clothing or cover. So Deathlock helps Ross kill something so they both can rock a couple pelts to warm themselves up so they can make their way to the nuclear power plant, which we learned from before wasn't too far from here, because in the last issue Ross mentioned that the river would basically take them right to it, with just a few clicks to spare. But when they get to where the nuclear power plant's supposed to be, ain't nothing there but a bunch of Doombots swarming around the area, with the whole power plant just gone. So now this has Deathlock saying things like, oh, thought you said you had a brain like a satellite feed. Thought you said the power plant was here. And the thing is, Ross knows this is where it's supposed to be, and Deathlock's computer even confirms it after picking up residual radiation in the area, indicative of a nuclear facility, which right away lets Ross know that Doom knew they were coming. And I mean, in a literal sense, the information leaked to the Doombots and that got back to Doom. But even if that weren't the case, Ross knows that after all these months, Doom's been in his mind studying the way that he thinks, as well as how the Red Hulk operates. So General Ross has to keep that in mind. But now with the power plant being a no-go, both Ross and Deathlock each pick up a half of Machine Man, as Ross leads them to a nearby house that he knew would be along the ridge. Because he says here, every power plant's got a community to support it. I knew we'd find something along the ridge. Anyone we find inside, try not to kill. These Latverian folks will be high up the food chain. We need insider intel, and we need notable hostages. But when they approach this house, for starters, the doors just open, so there's no need to kick it down or pick a lock or nothing. But even still, to stay on the safe side, Ross tells Deathlock to stay quiet. And as they head further in, it's not long before Ross is like, wait, you smell that? Just before they head in the kitchen and find a pig that's been rotting for weeks. And when they look around some more, they find an abandoned bath that's more than half evaporated, which lets them know whoever lived here left in a rush without any signs of struggle, and they've been gone for a long time. So for the time being, they'll just use this house to figure out what's next. So it's here where Ross tells Deathlock to take care of Machine Man while he gets on the computer to see what's happened to the rest of the world. Because last time he tried to radio for help, it was declined. And keep in mind, Thaddeus Ross has been locked away in Doom's dungeon since before One World Under Doom kicked off. So when he goes on the internet to see what's happened around the world, he's shocked to find out that Doom is taken over. And really with Ross seeing this hits him hard. Like, he's mad. Big mad for a number of reasons. Because not only did he help Doom achieve this, unintentionally of course, but also with Ross being the super patriot that he is, he also sees this as Doom violating the United States in the worst way. And it doesn't even matter that Doom took a quote-unquote legit approach as far as gathering the different world leaders and whatnot, because the truth is the methods Doom used to get the intelligence to even take that approach, it makes it all wrong from top to bottom. So when Ross finds out, he kind of blacks out for a moment. When Deathlock trying to ask him what's wrong, Ross eventually tells him, "I'm going to promise you something right now, Deathlock. I will not rest, not for 1 minute, not until Dr. Doom has fallen, and there's an American flag planted on Latvian soil." And now I'm not sure if Ross is talking about a US base or something more. You know, that's to be determined. But after some time has passed, Deathlock makes progress on doing the repairs for Machine Man, while Ross does some poking around and eventually finds a small arsenal with a couple of Kalashnikovs that he says will be good enough, because given the circumstance, these guys will just take what they can get. But it's around this time when Deathlock is able to get Machine Man back up and running, and mainly because of the help from his computer, since Deathlock's not really a digital guy. But as soon as Machine Man sits up, he just keeps saying Doom, Doom, Doom. So Ross is like, what's wrong with him? And Deathlock's just like, everything. And with the way Machine Man's talking, it's almost like he's about to attack them. But as it turns out, he's trying to warn them about an incoming Doombot who's found their location. And I mean, it's just one and Ross takes care of it quick. But because these Doombots work on a hive mind, it only takes for one of them to find these guys for there to be a lot more on the way soon after. And it doesn't take long for a couple more to show up. So before they get overwhelmed, Ross tells Machine Man that he hopes his lightning fast processor's up and running because he needs Machine Man to trigger a nuclear event now. So Ross tells him to direct the nearest 1 kiloton tactical missile to these coordinates. So Machine Man gets to collecting information and doing his beep bop boop, but also keep in mind there was a brief time when Machine Man was working for Doom before Doom locked him away, which is what helped him when he was hacking their way out. And what Machine Man learned hacking the dungeon also helps here, because just after he finishes his scan, he finds the missiles that Doom had taken from all around the world to sustain global peace, which are all being held in a satellite just over Latveria. And Machine Man uses the same algorithms that were from the think tank dungeon to launch the missile that General Ross had asked for, while saying Doom security codes appear to be universal, which is wild. Like, why is Doom out here using the same passcode on multiple accounts in 2025? It's crazy. But after successfully pulling this off and literally sending a missile down to their current location, Machine Man's just like, I believe now would be a good time for Deathlock and me to vacate the premises, because the plan is literally for them to drop a missile right where they're at so that it might produce enough radiation to recharge General Ross without killing him. And even as they leave Ross here, Deathlock is like, you sure this is gonna work? You're just a man right now. That blast might make you into a puddle of atoms. But once again, given the situation, given the circumstances right now, their location's already compromised, and there are a ton of Doombots inbound who Ross is not going to surrender to. So with that being the case, he just tells Deathlock if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, because he's dead anyway. So really, the way that Ross sees it, it's like he has nothing to lose, except everything. And it's like this moment quickly turns into that, like a scene from a movie, where everything slows down just before the missile hits, like it's General Ross's heroic ending. And there's also this tension of whether or not Deathlock or Machine Man are going to be able to make it to a safe distance to survive the impact, only for the camera to zoom in on the scorched earth in the aftermath, with it looking like, did General Ross's plan work? Find out on the next episode, titled The Return of Red Hulk. Like, come on, man. But at the same time, when you see that red hand punch out of the ground, just before the Red Hulk leaps out, and it's like, yo, it's about to go down. And it's here where Ross describes this moment or this feeling like squeezing the trigger on a gun, except for in his case, his whole body's the trigger. And I mean, when he puts it in those words, it's kind of like, okay, well, I guess he finna air this thing out. And really, that's basically what happens, because when all those Doombots show up, Ross just tears them to shreds. But there's a few other things that are going on here, because not only is Ross charged up, but he goes on to say here, the feeling is even more pronounced because it's been so long. I've been imprisoned, collared by a power inhibitor, drained of gamma radiation for so long that the raging energy coursing through me feels like a dam breaking. So once again, for Ross, this is like December 1st after No Hulk November. And again, there's more going on here, because for Ross, he's going at these Doombots as if they were each Doom himself. And he even says here, it's never felt so good to feel so angry. I might be fighting Doombots, but I tear through every one of them as if they were the man who imprisoned me. So yeah, Ross wants a piece of Doom after everything that's happened. And now when it comes to Deathlock and Machine Man, they survived the blast, but now that Machine Man's regained more of his functionality, he's picking up analog and digital signals, and he's able to tell that they now have the world's attention. So he asks Deathlock, would you like me to engage with any particular government or military branch? So Deathlock, of course, tells him to reach out to the US Air Force. So that's what Machine Man does, speaking on behalf of General Thaddeus Ross. And when he does, there's this Doombot that lands nearby after getting smacked by the Red Hulk, and it sees them, which leads to another Doombot making its way to Machine Man and Deathlock, and it's closing in. And this whole time, Machine Man's trying to talk to the US Air Force and tell them like, hey, we are prisoners of war in Latveria, requesting immediate extraction, only for the US Air Force to give them the whole, this is a restricted network talk. And that's where Deathlock's like, hey, we're the ones who dropped that missile. Do you really want to argue with us? And I'm not sure what that statement sounds familiar, but I'm just keep going. But this ends up leading to a moment where things start looking bad all around, because the Doombot, it catches up to Deathlock and Machine Man just as they're setting up an extraction point with the US Air Force, while at the same time with Red Hulk, he has this moment that looks like something right out of the Matrix Reloaded, because an insane number of Doombots just come pouring in from the clouds, and they pile on top of him like it is inevitable. Give up, Mr. Anderson. But no, they're all speaking to him, finishing each other's sentences, and telling him, you are but one man, Thunderbolt Ross. We will keep coming, not just here in Latveria, but the world over. We are everywhere, because Doom is everywhere. And as these Doombots continue to fly in and stack up, this all just builds up to the moment where Ross breaks free with another explosive release of energy that just completely wrecks the whole pile. And back over with Deathlock and Machine Man, who are both struggling with one Doombot. They are eventually able to handle it before meeting back up with Ross, who doesn't respond until Deathlock calls him Red Hulk. But now that the gang's back together, they're able to tell Ross that they've got backup incoming from the US Air Force, just before telling him where to take them to meet the US Air Force at the extraction point. And on their way, Ross is like, this is good news, very good news. We'll gather our forces and drop a payload on this country until it's nothing but blood and cinders. And right there, I'm just like, Ross, I'm gonna need you to take it down a couple notches, because Latveria has civilians, buddy. Chill. And now when they get to the extraction point, which is just outside of the border of Latveria, it's here as the cavalry's coming in where they notice one of these air vehicles is something that they haven't seen before. So next, Deathlock asks Machine Man if he's picking up any radio chatter now, and Machine Man's like, negative. If they're communicating, it's on a closed circuit that I can't detect. And that's where Deathlock's like, yeah, I'm getting a funny feeling about this. And when the Colonel steps off the helicopter, he approaches the Red Hulk, saying, I would like to speak to General Ross. So Ross is like, you're talking to him? Only for the Colonel to say, I would like to speak to General Ross, man to man. And it's here where Ross notices some things, because next he's like, you didn't salute me, Colonel. I assume that was intentional. I assume you're signaling to me in your petty way that I'm in breach of military law. So the Colonel's like, I repeat, I would like to speak to, and of course, this just pisses Ross off, because now he's like, say it. Say what you came here to say. And this is where, with an empty bladder, the Colonel tells him, I am here to inform you that you're in violation of the United States Treaty with Latveria. In accordance with the international law, you are to be detained as... And right there, Ross just goes off. He's like, you bend the knee to doom? America has no king! As he just takes out this chopper. And he's like, that means you're an enemy of the state. Which I imagine that's what the Colonel was getting ready to call Thaddeus Ross. Just that he managed to say it first. So at this point, Deathlock's like, what's the plan, boss? And Ross tells him, same as it ever was. Destroy anyone and anything that serves Doom. Defy any system that supports this global coup. Which might mean we're at war with the world. And from there, Ross just starts destroying all the US Air Force vehicles. But as he does, this hatch opens from the bottom of that one vehicle that didn't look familiar. So Machine Man starts scanning to see what they're up against. And as it opens, this huge gun drops down as Ross gets ready to smash it. And right here, Machine Man's like, when I cross-reference the design with proposals and reports in the military and tech sectors, I can reasonably conclude that this is an advanced version of an antimatter cannon that could potentially disrupt gamma wavelengths. Translation, a Hulkbuster. And as Ross gets hit, he's sent back to his human form. But even still, it's like, man, Machine Man, couldn't you have just told Ross, Hulkbuster, don't let it hit you? Like if people start shooting, I don't want to hear the history of firearms from the 10th century, I need you to get to the point. But nonetheless, this leads to Thunderbolt Ross getting arrested for treason. And it's like, man, they were so close to getting out of there. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com dope spill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.